All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for another edition of Live Learn from the Pros. Today is exciting. Today, we're going to be talking about DPA, and to my left, I guess, is my good
Yep.
friend Geoff Maurice. And Jeff is the technical sales manager at Gear Audio, who is the Canadian distributor of DPA microphones, and the big reason why I am a DPA user. So I'm very excited to talk to Jeff today, and hopefully you guys get a lot out of this, learn a lot, and start implementing DPA into your workflow if you haven't already done so. Just a few housekeeping matters. If you do have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. We're going to try and answer as many questions as possible today. We want to make sure you guys get all the information that you need. And also, if you haven't done so, go opt in at my website, jasonreynoldsproaudio.com. You're going to find a number of things there. First of all, you're going to find where you can opt in with your email to receive updates. So every week I send out an email just to let you guys know what's happening. Of course, we're doing these Learn from the Pros, but we also have master classes for audio engineers at patreon.com/jasonreynoldsproaudio. And you should also subscribe to my YouTube channel if you find value in what we're talking about today. Every day we try to do something different. We're going to be talking about Digico tomorrow. And then Friday we have world-renowned stage manager Ash Ali on the program. So yeah, definitely exciting lineup. But without further ado, we don't want to waste too much time. We want to get into talking about DPA microphones. So Jeff, take it away.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. DPA has been one of those brands that we've looked at from afar from a number of years, and we always thought it would fit well with the products that we sell, like Digico and Meyer Sound, and it's one of those brands that everyone looks towards and is regarded as a very high profile version. So I got a bunch of mics here that I'm happy to show, but I was going to run a little bit of a slideshow, just a couple of historical things and a couple of little bits and pieces before we get too far in. Does that sound okay?
Sounds good.
Cool. So I'm just going to switch my screen here, and we will get started. All right. Can you see that okay? So this is based on a presentation that I've given a number of times, and the theme is kind of knowing your microphone, and knowing what it's capable of, knowing its limitations, so that you can best use it and best place it, and things like that. So there's a number of different examples of mics and mic techniques and things that we'll cover in this, as well as some new products that have just come out too that are pretty exciting. So DPA is not a super old company. It was founded in 1992, and it was actually a spin-off of a couple of folks that left Brüel and Kjær in Denmark. So B&K was known as a very high-quality measurement brand, and they still are. They make a number of high-quality measurement microphones, sound level meters, and things like that, as well as head and torso simulators and vibration analysis tools and things. So, there came a time in history where they were making such linear microphones. There was a number of people that said, why can't we use these for recording? Why can't we record a grand piano with these microphones? And at the time, the company really wasn't interested in going in that direction, but these guys were. So they gave it a shot. It was a fantastic success, and they spun off and formed DPA. So you can see some of the historical B&K capsules and the similarities with the new DPA ones. So very measurement centric background. They do all their microphones in-house, so they're all handcrafted in Denmark. And I think 90% of everything that they do is done under a microscope. So these are probably one of the most famous ones, the 4060s. These are used on Broadway, and they're probably the most common lavs. They're our bestseller for sure. And this is kind of a quick shot into how some of them are actually made. So I've had the chance to see it a few times, and it's pretty astounding what they go through. Lots of talented and patient people over there. So One of the big things as well too is how small these microphones are, and that's really true with the new 6060 microphones, where they're down into the 3mm capsules and things like that. But one of the big things, and one of the reasons these microphones are as good as they are, is the tolerances that they're able to get. So
Right.
we're looking at measurements from the diaphragm to the backplate, the actual element here of less than 1 micron. So you can see how small that actually is relative to things like table salt and human hairs and things like that. So that's why everything needs to be done under a microscope, and that's why the mics cost what they do. So yeah, so it's basically less than the size of a particle of smoke. It's kind of neat.
Wow,
So,
that's crazy.
yeah, they don't all wear suits like that. I mean, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but it's part of what it is. So fundamentally, they have they kind of abide by 3 attributes that they work from, and one of the most important ones, I think, is the on and off axis frequency response. So a lot of microphones out there will color the sound in many different ways, and that can be good for some things, but it kind of excludes the usage for a lot of other different styles of music or events or things like that. So DPA's approach is to have perfectly linear on and off axis frequency response, so that you can use a particular microphone or have one style of microphone and use it for pretty much anything that you decide you want to do. And it gives you a faithful representation of exactly what you're putting into it. The other one is fast transient response. So it needs to be able to keep up with the quick transients of something like a snare drum, or a triangle has always been a very a tricky thing to reproduce in the past, as well as being able to handle the high SPL peaks of things like human voices and drums are loud for sure, but human voices can get pretty freaking loud.
Right.
So they actually did a study once with the de facto capsule, which we'll talk about in a minute, where they actually brought in a number of people into an anechoic chamber and measured how loud that women could scream. And that microphone has a 160 dB SPL peak, and there was a few women that got into the high 140s, low 150s. So it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing what that human voice can do. So,
wow.
So this is a famous phrase that I like to use as well, is that the output of the microphone is the sum of everything it's picking up from any angle. So it's not just representing everything it's getting direct on axis, but it's taking in everything that's coming in from all angles around it as well too. So you can have very nice on-axis response from that microphone, but you could have horribly contoured off-axis with peaks and valleys and things like that. And once that's in there, once that's been entered into the microphone, there's no way to get it out. So that kind of that mixes with the the sound that you're most interested in, and gives you cancellations and things like that you just don't really want. So
right.
So the biggest thing that these guys are good at is the linearity. So this is a picture of I believe this is a 4011, if I'm not mistaken. And you can see right down from 100 hertz all the way up to over 10K, a slight rise in the top end. And each of these lines here represents degrees of off axis. So the first one is 30, then we have 60 degrees off axis here, and then we get to 90. But you can see that the contour and the actual overall shape is exactly the same. It just gets lower in level. And like a good speaker, that's the perfect representation. Is it does exactly what it does on axis, but it just gets, it just gets a little bit quieter as you go off axis. And it's not until you're, nearly right behind the mic, 140 degrees, that that you're well attenuated at that point. But even then, this isn't horrible. This is what a 58 looks like at 30 degrees off axis. So
right.
So that is a big thing, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons that these microphones sound as good as they do. So, and another way of looking at that is the actual polar pattern of the mic. So each of the different colors represents different frequencies, and in a perfect world, you wouldn't be able to see any difference. They would all lay right on top of each other, perfectly aligned. But as you can see, there are some slight differences here, but it's very minor in many cases. So this is a 4018, which is used in our vocals. And then this is one of our shotgun microphones, which is used a lot in post-production and film work for voice track over records and things like that. So, but you can see the difference. Even it is a much tighter pattern, but it still does maintain quite a bit of uniformity. So. One of the most popular ones that we're getting into is the Devote microphones. These are the instrument mics that we place on pretty much anything that you can think of. So these mics are incredibly durable. I mean, they're quite famous for Lars from Metallica using them, so they can stand up to anything. But the nicest thing is that they can you see my screen right? Can you see me right now as well, Jason, or no?
No, we're just seeing your screen.
Okay, I'll show the mics after. I got a couple here. So, but even with that guy, it's not as nice as the other one we looked at. But you can see 0, 30, and 60 degrees. We're maintaining very, very close symmetry to what we're seeing on the on and slightly off axis versions as well too. And there's nothing here that's obnoxious. There's no massive peaks or valleys or anything that's going to really color the sound all that much. So
right.
This is a much cheaper mic than what we were just looking at, but you can tell it's quite good even still. So
right.
So one of the biggest things with these guys is they're incredibly small, but they can handle a huge amount of SPL as well too. So these get used on drums. So we have a high SPL version that can handle 152 dB of SPL peak with a dynamic range of over 100 dB. So you could throw this on a kick drum, you can throw it on a snare drum, and you don't have to worry about it overloading or clipping or anything like that. And this one's kind of unique too, is that it has an interference tube. So it's quite directional. It's one of our Supercardioids, but it basically has our on-axis energy enters the tube at this direction, and then basically we have our off-axis energy coming in from the side here. I'll show you a picture of this in a second. And that energy basically gets slowed down, and based on the difference in time arrival, provides a unique cancellation that is tuned to give it its pattern. So really nice for post miking, putting it on a snare, but minimizing what kind of hi-hat bleed you get into that and so forth. So lots of math behind it, but I have no idea what any of that means. So, but this one's cool. I mean, they keep making new clips for this guy, so you can put it on anything from violins and cellos and bass and guitar and sax and I don't even know what this thing is called. I don't remember exactly, but it's if you can come up with an instrument, I'm pretty sure we can find a way to mic it. So,
right.
And then one of the common ones too is the piano as well. So it's a magnetic mount, and this gets placed in quite a number of spots. But it just mounts to the soundboard there, and it can be moved and twisted and bent and so forth. So, a couple of years ago, they came out with a new technology that really pushed them forward. And basically, they were able to minimize the distortion by over 10 dB with these core technologies. So in those little tiny capsules, this is a representation of the little mic element itself. There's a little amplifier actually built into every single one of them. And this thing is, microscopic. You can barely see this on the mic in itself. And they were able to change some of the circuitry and redo that. And that got them, 10 dB more dynamic range. So they were able to get more SPL before the mic actually was clipping. And with my beer analogy, that allowed them, the foam basically is the headroom in the mic, and the beer itself is the dynamic range itself. So in the case of the core microphones, we've pushed that dynamic range up. So the noise floor, nothing else has changed. That starts at the same spot, but the upper end of our threshold has been pushed up by actually 14 dB. So that gives us a much more usable range, much less chance of running into any issues with high SPL and things like that.
Right.
So not a lot of people even realized that this was, happening, but it kind of slipped in. And I think 90% of our mics now are core. So
Right, right.
it's a great way forward. A little bit of value add there. So, and of course, everything works with many different adapters too. So everything comes typically with a microdot, the universal connector of ours, and then they can adapt to an XLR, or they can go into any one of the wireless, Shure, Sennheiser, Lectrosonics, whatever the most common things are right there. So yeah, and they've had some good success. One of my favorites is Dennis Chambers there on the left, drumming. I got a chance to watch him at NAMM a couple of years ago, and he was mic'd up with a full kit of 4099s, and he was at one of the ballrooms at the convention center, and I think I got there as the presentation was about to start, and the room was full. There must have been like a couple thousand people in the room just watching him, do this presentation. So it was it's pretty crazy. So amazing drummer, and I think this is Bill Evans, if I'm not mistaken, on saxophone. So he's an avid DPA user as well. And of course, the famous Lars with his 4099. So these things get hit with sticks left, right, and center, and very rarely does he ever have any issues. So,
right. I think one of the things that, especially for front of house engineers, or monitor engineers, whoever is selecting mics, and one of our comments was regarding one of the mounts, is being able to get microphones into sometimes really tight places, right? Because especially when miking a drum kit, if you have a drummer that has a whole ton of cymbals, or like a lot of R&B or gospel drummers tend to like their cymbals really low. So putting a typical older style drum mic in there with a cable sticking out of it is not always effective, because it's going to get hit by a cymbal, it's going to get hit by sticks because it's getting in the way. So I think highlighting for our viewers the mounts is actually a really incredible thing, and a microphone that's that small that can take. I mean, you could put it on a kick drum, you could put it on a snare drum. It's going to take that SPL fairly comfortably.
Yeah, and one of my favorites with these mics too, and you can see in this picture, is that he's under mic'd his cymbals here, so I'm not sure if you can see this very well,
yes.
But we used the universal mount here, the Velcro strapped mount, and he's basically just bending the mic up and he's pointing it towards the bell of the of that, and you can see a couple of different ones. They've actually changed the position, because one of the nicest things with these mics is that they're meant for close miking, but you can really change the pickup and the kind of coloration, and sorry, I should say that the tonal balance of what you're picking up. So, I mean, these guys are meant to pick up at 2 inches approximately away from the sound source, and and they'll be pretty much flat at that point of whatever that sound is. But if you were to push that mic a little bit closer, like on a tom, for example, you might want that meatier, beefier, lower frequency tonal characteristic from the tom. Just by moving that mic toward that speaker by an inch or less, you'll get a good difference in the sound. So that's the other part of it too, is that guys don't have to jump for EQ right away, and start into EQing certain things that they like or they don't like. A quick change in the mic placement will be far more beneficial than spinning that knob a little bit as well too. So that is I've had some fun making some drum kits, and I'm I don't mix very much anymore, if at all. And I've mic'd up a couple of kits with a 10-piece Devote kit, and it's been it's been a breeze. You put the mics out, do a quick line check, make a few adjustments to the angle of them, go back, listen again, and at that point you're like 99% in the bag, and throw a bit of EQ on if you want, but you don't even really have to. It's quite amazing how far you can get with such little effort with these microphones. So.
Right. And I think also too, we have some people who are watching that are studio guys. Like I know Drew is on here, and he's got a studio down in Miami. The having a microphone that is truly linear, that's also gonna sound really good, in out the box. Like it is gonna even be so much better for recording and capturing these sources at the highest quality, right?
Exactly. And my thing is that, picking it up as linearly as possible, and, starting with a blank canvas I think is the best approach, because you can always post-process, you can add any of these things in afterwards.
Right.
But you can never typically take these, artifacts out. If you're picking up the sound in a colored way, you can't go back on that in the same way that you can add it in if you've got a kind of a blank canvas. And
Right.
that applies to microphones, but it also applies to loudspeakers as well too. So they're the same devices really. So it goes both ways. But I think that's the best approach, because there's so many tools out there with Waves and any of these plugins that you can really do what you want once you've got a good copy of that. But it's very hard to go the other way.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyways, that's one of my favorites for sure. And I don't know if I can play this video. Can I? I'm gonna see. I got a little video of the drum kit miking up. That's kind of interesting. Is it worth watching, or should we skip it?
Yeah. I mean, if it'll play, definitely.
Let's have a look here. So I'm just going to pause this. So this is an example. This is on the DPA website, but I think it's a fantastic video because they mic'd up a drum kit, and they did it starting with just two of the little miniature 4060 mics. And if you've got a set of headphones and you're listening to this, you'll know right away how good how good of a representation you're getting with just those two microphones. And then they start adding 4099s into the mix to expand it and to give you a little bit more control. But with two little tiny 5mm capsules, equidistant to the snare drum, they're getting a pretty incredible setup. So we'll see if this works. I don't know how the sound's going to be. So
I hope it'll work.
Yeah.
I don't think the sound's coming through because I'm still hearing your microphone.
There's only two. It hasn't started yet. We'll see in a second.
Oh, okay.
Here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it works.
So these are two Omni mics. They'll show you where they're placed. So they're using the same clips for the vote, but these are the Omni mics. So I think they added 2011 in here, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, 4099. A lot of people don't think this will handle a kick, but it will. So that's just the two mics, and then the kick. You can barely hear the snare, the hi-hat in that, eh?
Yeah, I think what we may be hearing on the video is like actually the speaker coming back through your microphone.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if we're hearing it direct, but at least it provides some sort of pointer reference for our viewers anyway, because they can go and view this afterwards on the DPA website to get sort of the direct sound. I think there's still a lot of value to see how they're positioning mics in to mic this kit.
Yeah, it's a great video, and it's very well done, and it's up on the DPA website. We can share the link afterwards if you like.
Yeah, definitely, we'll do that.
Again, near the end here, but one of the later mics that they've come up with is the de facto handheld vocal mic, and this was actually something that came from Sting.
Right.
He discovered the DPA 4011, and he, for a number of years, had been singing with it, and he'd been using it, and he thought it was fantastic. And it was never designed with a form factor that worked well for, to be a vocal mic. So, he kept pushing DPA to do it, and eventually they did it. And they're like many manufacturers, where it might take them a little while to do it, but when they do it, they do it right.
Right.
So it took them a few years, but they came up with this guy, and it's like I said, it's earlier. It's 160 dB of SPL handling, so it's nearly impossible to peak this out.
Right.
It's got a couple different stages of pop filtering as well too. So the grill will come off, and there's two filters underneath that, aside from the foam that can come out. And like any of the other ones, it's incredibly transparent and incredibly linear. So it's basically one of the studio mics capsules, but in the body of a handheld. So
Right. Right.
and then we do have a series of wireless adapters to throw it on a Shure handheld body or a Sennheiser thing as well too. So. And this guy's pretty amazing. It's got a dynamic range of over 120 dB with over 20 dB of headroom on top of that. So very, very low self noise, 19 dBA, right up to 139 as a working range that you can use it for. So
Right. And you got to be, I mean, you got to be a really loud vocalist to be hitting that extra 21 dB of headroom over that 139 dB. I'm not sure if anybody can really get up that loud singing, for sure.
Not for singing, no. Screaming, yes, but not singing.
yeah, for sure.
Hey, if you want to, you can throw it on the kick drum. It's a great kick drum mic too. So.
Yeah.
And this is one thing that's also interesting too. I'll take a minute to talk about is their cardioid versus supercardioid. You'll see that there's a difference, but there's not a huge difference. So on the left is the 4011, and then on the right is the 4018 or supercardioid. And you can see that the big difference is this ball here on the back side of it. And then you can see, I like to call this the tightness in the cheeks, basically on the back side, where the supercardioid is a little tighter in the back here than it is, slightly narrower up front, but not much different. But this one obviously doesn't have the same ball on the back as well. So normally supercardioid mics are known to have quite a bit of throw off the back of them, but they've done a good job in keeping the characteristics of a cardioid, but tightening up the pattern and really pulling in the ass.
Right.
So yeah, there's not a huge difference between these two pattern wise, but it's a subtle but useful difference, especially for vocals and things.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. And for monitor guys who are a little bit hesitant, because sometimes what you find is that you have the battle of front of house versus monitors, right? The front of house guy likes a really nice linear or sharper sounding capsule, but a monitor guy is always maybe a little bit worried about how that's going to interact if he's got wedges on stage, side fills, that kind of stuff. And I can say from experience that the de facto capsule, that rejection on the back is just really, really phenomenal. Like, you're not gonna be fighting that as you would, as what you would be used to or come to expect from like a supercardioid condenser microphone on stage. You definitely don't have that problem with de facto.
No, and if you can put, you don't always get the opportunity, and it always changes. But if you can put a specific sound into this 120 to 180 degree range, especially in this 120 to 150, it's in this 135 degrees. It's a perfect cancellation. I've done some sessions where we had a guy singing into a de facto while playing acoustic guitar, and with that microphone position, not necessarily flat, with a slight up angle. You put that guitar in that 135 degree range, the guitar is gone. You solo the voice only, and you listen for the guitar when the guy stops singing, and it's just not there. You can just faintly hear some semblance of a guitar, like it was removed or something like that. So it's pretty amazing how perfect it is in that range.
Right. And Kenny Kaiser and I were, Kenny was my guest on Thursday, and we were talking about the challenges of like a stage like the Killers. And actually, Kenny and I had introduced him to Leonardo from DPA at NAMM because, they're heading out on a new tour, so they have some time to try stuff. And but then COVID happened, but he's particularly excited trying the DPAs because they had got rid of all that. Like, currently the only condenser they have on the stage is a Beta 91 inside the kick drum, because rejection is like paramount for them. It's the
Yeah.
most important thing. So what I want people to understand is you don't have to sacrifice rejection to have these microphones on your stage. That's such an incredible thing for live sound, not just live, but even recording as well.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you get into the arguments of condensers versus dynamic mics as well too. And there's a lot of old school folks that, that think that they're, more sensitive to pick up things, or they can't handle the SPL. You need a large diaphragm, condenser, or a large diaphragm mic for those things. And a lot of that stuff is not necessarily true. It was specific to certain microphones, just not the actual technology itself. And everything DPA makes are condenser microphones. And they managed to get these ridiculous numbers out of them just with the tolerances and keeping things tight. So seeing them made and watching what they start from, these little things of mylar that get plated, and they get weighed like 60 times in the process of being made, and if they don't fall into a spec at a certain point, they get thrown out basically. You start with hundreds of these things and get down to just a few by the end of it, just because that's all that matches. That's where you can get these incredible performance gains and linearity and I mean, I've taken DPA mics, some recording mics like 4006s that are like 20 years old almost, and checked them against brand new ones. And they're so close to the new ones, it's not even funny. Like, people have asked whether we should send them in for calibration or adjustment or things like that, and it's like, it's just, I can't honestly say that they need to, right? It just they're so close, it's not even funny. So
wow, incredible.
Anyways, it's fun. So anyways, yeah, this is just showing the pattern and the differences and things like that. So cheeks on the back.
Right.
So here's a picture of Sting singing with the the new de facto at the time, and Celine Dion and Stevie Wonder, of course, too. So they're avid users of these mics. I know you've had some experience with Sting too, so
yes,
kind of
yeah, definitely. They don't. The Sting camp doesn't leave home without their de facto.
No, they better not. One of the cool new ones too is they just came out with a something called the 2028, and this mic is it was met with a bit of internally, at least, it was met with a bit of hesitation, because everything that DPA does, they try to do it at the highest degree possible, the best quality, things like that. The only downfall with the de facto is that, it does come with a cost. And with the 2028, the idea was to get it as close as they possibly could to the de facto, but do it in such a way that, they were able to charge less for the microphone, not based on quality, but they took away some of the modularity of it. So the capsule is fixed inside, and it's a different version if you want to go to a wireless handheld or something along those lines. But I've been on the occasion many times where we've compared a de facto to a 2028, and I even asked the head of engineering, I said, so really, what is the difference? And he just went, he just shrugged. And, and then you just know right there, it's like, yeah, there's really no difference, really. It's pretty much, the only difference that I've seen spec wise is that the self noise is slightly higher than a de facto, but the coverage pattern, the SPL handling is still all the same. It's a little smaller, it's not modular, and it's quite a bit less money. So for somebody looking to get into a really high quality vocal mic, this is a great spot, and you're not really sacrificing anything whatsoever as far as I'm concerned. So
right.
And if you don't see them together, you wouldn't even know the difference, to be honest. So I mean, they look very much like a de facto, and the wireless versions, and they're almost identical. So
does the 2028 have a wireless version of that capsule currently?
It does, but you can see in this picture on one of the unique things with the de facto is that the actual capsule inside is where the money's at, and on the de facto you can take that off, and you can buy just the adapter ring for a wireless and screw it on, so that you're not buying a whole other capsule if you only ever are going to use one at a time. On the 2028, you can get the wireless version, but it's the whole thing. So it's
Right.
the capsule
Right.
integrated into that. But
Right.
the mic is quite a bit less money, so
Yeah.
it's really
Well,
not much of a
yeah, I was thinking mainly for those folks, like you have some smaller is not the word I wanna use. Maybe
no.
independent artists that don't necessarily have the budget right away to get up into de facto into a 4018. They can always get into a 2028, and like you mentioned, the sound quality is not going to be far off from a 4018. I mean, they might have to. I mean, a lot of people are looking for, Matt made a good point in the comments here on YouTube that after COVID, a lot of artists are going to want to have their own capsules. I'm sure that's going to be something that people are going to look more into doing, is investing in their own capsules. So I think if you can't get up, if you're watching and a 4018 might be a bit out of your price range, then definitely a 2028 is not really a compromise, but a very good one in any case.
No, I mean, I have this school of thought. We have a number of people in our industry, in certain, not necessarily the live sound side of things, but in some of the corporate sectors and things like that, they don't want to spend like $700 or $800 on a microphone. And the way I break it down to these people, and even in my own mind, is that of any of the pieces of the sound reinforcement system, you got speakers, microphones, mixing consoles, things like that. The least expensive part of all of that is always the microphones. It's always the
Absolutely.
cheapest part of the chain. And at the same time, it is the one part of the chain that can affect the outcome of the sound the most out of all of them. And
Absolutely.
there's a lot of people that think, I have a crappy PA system, or, my church doesn't sound that great. Why would I spend money on a good microphone? Because it's not going to make a difference. I don't believe that. I've done that many times, where you put a de facto into a lesser quality system. It will always make a difference. It
Right.
doesn't matter how good
Absolutely.
or how bad of a system you have. Putting a
Absolutely.
good quality mic in front of it will always make a difference. And at the same time, it's the least expensive thing that you can add into it to do that, and it's the easiest thing. There's no
Right.
installation required.
And nowadays, with as we touch on the subject, like Matt touched on, of COVID, especially for churches or anybody really, now streaming plays such a prominent part in what they're doing, especially for, again, not just churches, but also people who are trying to put out content online. Having that sound captured correctly coming in, and I'm sure later on we'll touch on stuff like the MMA little interface for your phone, because everybody is streaming nowadays. Having something come in clean and come in sounding great limits what you have to do on the back end. And if you don't have a setup of a $100,000 mixing console to put it through to get the back end sounding great, then definitely the investment in a great microphone pales in comparison to that of a really expensive console to process a crappy microphone.
Yeah, and as you say, especially with the live streaming stuff, where it's only really touching that front end of it, you want your best possible foot forward for that. So that's the best place to spend the money. So
Right, absolutely.
yeah. The last thing I was going to talk about is this. You mentioned a little bit about churches. So one of the newest microphones they've come out with is something called the 4097. So you can see it looks very much like one of the instrument mics here. So the end of the mic itself is actually just like a Devote instrument mic. But it's coupled to a longer bar with the pole, and this allows you to do kind of unobtrusive choir miking without actually having to hang mics. So these can be
Right.
put in front or behind, and you can place that. So you can kind of point this, because this is a supercardioid capsule, so you can really point this towards the area that you want to cover, and create a nice pickup, an even pickup by pointing it in the right direction and so forth. And you can the cool thing with this is that in portable things, you can actually make this wireless. So this comes with an XLR at the bottom here at the base, but you can swap that out for a wireless adapter and put a little wireless transmitter at the base and just carry the stand around and place it where you need to. And that's kind of a neat option for those situations, because trying to hang choir mics is no fun, and it's impossible half the time. So this is kind of a nice a nice throw and go way to do that in an
Right.
adaptable way at the same time too. So
Right.
so yeah, that's pretty much it. There's a series of mics called Dedicate that are quite interesting. That we share the same bodies and preamps, but we have different capsules that screw on. We have our 2011 here. We have our 4011 and so forth. But that's pretty much it for me. That's all I wanted to show you on the slide here. So I have some mics here I can show you in person, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at some microphones. I know Drew and some of the people watching, and for everybody watching, feel free to comment. Like if there's something that y'all want to see, definitely feel free to comment and let us know what y'all want to see. Geoff, you can go into some of what you've got there to show everybody.
Yeah, definitely. We didn't really talk about headsets, but one of the biggest ones is our defined style of headsets here. Sorry, I'm going to make sure this is on camera.
I need that neon green for when I'm
Yeah,
teaching.
I know. Well, that's the reason we have it, is that it's perfect. We would call it Shrek's microphone or
Right.
something like that, but it's one of those things that it highlights the mic being there, so you can show that you are wearing a mic. But it's kind of funny because nobody ever wants to see the mics either. So
Right.
this isn't one of the newest ones, but this is kind of a neat one that they made with the earpiece here being a rubberized piece. It's not a metal band or anything like that. It's uncomfortable. So this molds to your ear very nicely.
Right.
And it's totally modular as well. So you can actually take the boom off and pull the actual boom off and replace it. So traditionally, and with a lot of microphones, the capsules are integrated into the cable. So if you break a cable right near the end here, you're kind of out of luck.
Right.
But they've gotten away from that and made it adaptable, so you can replace 3 parts on this without having to scrap the mic in total. So
right. Amazing.
You can get this with a dual ear as well too. It comes in directional or omni. So
right.
So that's one of the most popular. The little miniature guys like the 4060s here. These guys are probably the most popular for us. This is one of the heavy duty versions as well. So it's actually got an increased strain relief right here.
Right.
So this gets used a lot for like news pickups and ENG kits and things like that. And it's got the heavier duty cable in it with Kevlar. So, I can tear the crap out of this thing, and I'm really not worried about
just for reference of those watching, how much that mic that you just yanked that cable like that, how much does that cost?
This one would probably be, I think it in Canadian dollars, about $560.
Yeah,
Maybe
so you just pretty much with any other microphone would have destroyed a $500 lav mic.
I would feel comfortable hooking this up to my truck and pulling a trailer with this or something like that. It's
insane.
that strong.
Wow.
I've had to. I mean, we terminate these mics here, and cut it. There's Kevlar reinforcements inside, and it's tricky to cut the Kevlar even to do that part. So even with a pair of scissors, if you tried to cut this thing, you have to work at it. Like it takes a couple tries to get it.
Right.
So, and they've been putting Kevlar even into the smaller cables for the last like 3 or 4 years. So even the thinner gauge cables are quite strong too. So
incredible. Just for that, we got a question from Bo that I think I can answer. But Bo, the microphone models are for the vocal mics is the 4018 or the 2028. That's the de facto 4018 and the 2028.
Yeah. So yeah, if we just flip back to the 4099 for a little bit here, I've got one of these guys. So we talked a lot about that, and the nicest thing with this is that it's totally bendable as well, so you can change position of it. We talked a little bit about the interference tube and a little bit about the math behind it. So if you look down the capsule there, capsule's actually at the end of the tube, and there's little holes in the silver here that, as I said, kind of slow and delay the sound down so that it mixes with the on-axis energy and gives you that cardioid pattern. But at the same time, like I said, the nice thing with this is that it's so flexible and it kind of rebounds. If you hit this thing with a stick or you hit it with something like that, it's such a light thing that the impact is very low. So the chances of damaging it or breaking it are very low. Even still, you can hit this thing with a stick all day long. The problems that we find with people in these microphones is when they step on them. You can't get around stepping on a mic for sure, but that's where we have most of the issues. So, and at the base, there's a removable cable as well. So you can actually screw in a microdot cable here, or an extension if you need this to be a little bit longer, whatever you like. So, and we've got clips galore. I think there's eight or nine different clips now. This is one for a guitar. This actually gets used quite a bit on snare drums as well too. So you can actually, on kick drums. So on some of the deeper wooden rimmed kick drums, you can actually clamp this down on the rim, and then the mic mounts in this spot right here, and can go into the hole, things like that. So, and I
that's
think
actually really convenient for for those who are looking for a really good acoustic guitar tone. I know some of my friends that are watching that I see commenting that have studios doing acoustic work. A 4099 on acoustic guitar is gonna smash away any DI that's out there any day. It's gonna sound not only we talk about linear, but just being able to change the off axis when you're pointing that mic at the hole in the guitar is you can significantly address some of those sound issues coming off of the resonance of an acoustic guitar with that clamp. So I just wanted to point that out, especially for the studio guys watching.
Yeah, and there's one thing I'll mention on that with guitars and that de facto thing I was talking about with the vocal mic, and being able to pretty much lose the guitar in the vocal. That little mic that I was tugging on here, this guy makes a really good acoustic guitar mic as well. And so we have little magnetic clips, or we have little stick-on clips that you can put onto a guitar body. And I have done many different examples and experiments where we've mic'd up both. We put a 4099 on, and we put this guy on. And even though this is an Omni mic, because it's picking up such a wide range, but at a closer distance, we can get very similar gain before feedback from this guy than we can from this. So I've done some experiments where we mic'd both up. And then we did the opposite, where we listened to how much vocal was getting into the 4099 or the miniature. And it's remarkable how good this is when it's just slightly closer to the sound source.
Right.
And that's an interesting thing too, so that you can get away with. And that's a phenomenon that's not really talked about very much. And it's the proximity. It's I don't want to say it's not the proximity effect, but it's a proximity versus the directionality of these mics here. You get to a certain point where putting this microphone closer means you need less gain on the mic than you do for this guy slightly further away. So you end up with a very similar, output. But this positionally, because it's Omni, is that much easier to place because it's not as critical on the location. So.
Right.
So something to play with if you ever have a chance. It's quite amazing how good you can get one of those to sound. So. And then I've got a couple of other mics, other mounts here as well too. One of the things they've kind of come to do a little bit lately is come up with more interesting cable designs as well. So this is it's kind of, we call it like a bit of an active cable. So the preamp is actually built into the XLR here, and this allows me to do something like a mic like a 2011 capsule, which is very popular for drums, for snare and for kick. And with one of those mounts, I can stick this very discreetly onto a snare drum or something like that, instead of having to put a body or something bigger like this, or even more traditionally like a full-on 4011 like this. So they call these active cables, and they have cables that come out the sides and the back, depending on what you're getting into, and different lengths as well. So kind of a unique solution that not a lot of people think about. And you can use the same clips that you can use with the Devote mics. So you can put on the rim clips and the piano clips and things like that. So this is the piano clip here. It's got a magnet built into the bottom of it, so it'll stick. It's very, very strong, very, very strong mount. So, and not last but very interesting too is some of our hanging mics too. So this is actually similar design to the 40 the instrument mic. It's called the 4098, and this guy is meant to be either a podium mic, you know, bent towards somebody like this,
Right.
or flipped upside down, and on a cable, it can be something that hangs down from the ceiling.
Right.
So this guy's kind of unique that way. And there are longer versions available too. So I have an actual podium mic here with one of our bases.
Nice.
Can mount. So this can actually be a ceiling mount as well too. So this is a shock. It's got a rubber. I'm gonna try to put this on the camera. It's got a rubber base here that's isolated right here.
Right.
So this can be done on a tabletop, but you can also mount this to ceiling tiles as well and hang the mic down if you wanted to. Or I could unscrew the microdot and put the little white mic on it alternatively. So
right.
Thing for those guys. So, you know, one of the things people probably noticed is that most of the mics are the same. You know, it's the same mic used in many different applications with different adapters. And, you know, that kind of goes with the philosophy of them creating linear microphones that can be used not just for one thing, but for many different aspects. So, and then I do have to introduce my buddy Mike here. This guy is creepy, but he's a great way to check out microphones. So you can see he's wearing one of our new miniatures. I think you have one of these as well. And then we have, he's also got one of our lav mics. So this is great for churches. These guys are very directional. It's got a interference tube built in, not as long as the instrument one, but very rejective as well for down on the chest mount. And then we also have one of these guys here. This is one of our 4071s, and it's used quite often for those EMG and field kits. So it's got a bit of a presence boost built into it to compensate for the kind of sound pickup of down in your chest. You know, when you pick up sound down in your chest, you lose a lot of the high frequencies. You have a bit of roll off there. So this has kind of a compensative gain in the opposite direction to linearize that. So
makes sense.
Kind of a nice thing. You don't want to walk into a room with this guy at night, that's for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
I am having a little bit of difficulty with my camera coming back, so that's why Geoff is on the screen right now. But we're gonna keep Geoff up. There's a few things I wanted to point out that you were talking about. One is I wanted to show people my 6066 that I have on that I'm speaking through. So maybe I can get my camera back up. Let's see if we can get it to.
I got one here. I'll try it, but
what's interesting for me is that people can't see it when I'm wearing it.
I couldn't even tell. I was wondering if you were.
It's like right in here. If I move it around, you'll be able to see it. But that's my yeah, definitely how the 6066 that I'm speaking through is phenomenal. Like you literally cannot see this mic. It's that small.
And no beard noise either.
Yeah, exactly. And for, you know, give it up for Geoff's beard, which is new to the beard. You're new to the beard gang. But yeah, definitely for those of us who always have facial hair, beard noise tends to get a little bit much when you're wearing a headset mic. So yeah, it's. What are you speaking through now? Are you wearing one of those lavs?
I'm not, because we gave ours to you, so I'm just using my laptop. It's better that you sound good than me. So
fair enough. So anything you wanna end with, Geoff? Anything you wanna let people know about? Anything that they should know about DPA coming down the pipeline in the near future?
Well, I know there's in the world of live sounds, which will probably change for quite some time to come, but whenever it does rebound, there's a couple of new microphones I think that are going to be coming down that people will quite like. It's been products that people have asked for quite some time. So in traditional DPA logic, they're doing it, but they're doing it right. So that's a big thing. I'm wondering if you can show your little MMA device there that you have. I don't have one here because you have it. So that's kind of a neat tool as well for doing stuff like this, and doing really high quality pickups. So
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can. Let me try and re-add my camera here because I'm just having a little bit of sync issues on my end. My computer is crying out for mercy. It's working really hard.
mine too. My fan's spinning mercilessly.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna try to re-add my All right, I think I figured it out here. Hold on, let's get the audio part sorted out. Perfect. Looks like I got it. All right, so for those watching, I'm gonna show you my my little kit here, and let me just make sure I can still hear Geoff. Perfect. So I've got this the MMA, which I've been doing a lot of podcasts and going live on Instagram and stuff like that. So that has a little cable that comes with it. So if you can see in there, it hooks up to my phone. So I'm an iPhone user for those watching who own the best phone on the market, which is an iPhone. Shout out to Matt who has an Android. But it comes with a little iPhone cable. So it plugs directly into my phone, and it has two microdot connectors. So you can plug any DPA microphone into this. So if you wanna record, let's say you have an idea, and you wanna lay down a quick acoustic guitar track because you're somewhere remote and all you got is your phone, you do not have to suffer with terrible sound on your phone, but you can actually use this. And you guys were gracious enough to send me a couple different lavs with it that we were able to use to. It's pretty cool, man. These things are really nice. So yeah, it comes in a little handy case that you can carry around with you. And if you're broadcasting, if you're taping podcasts, if anything you're doing live online is phenomenal. So yeah, definitely you want to grab one of those.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most useful products given the current situation that we sell.
Right. So. Yeah, man, for sure. So I want to, if anybody else has any questions, I want to take some questions before we jump off today. I've started a war between iPhone and Android online now.
I'll support you on the iPhone there. No problem.
So anybody's got any questions for Geoff? Any questions regarding DPA stuff? Any questions? We're gonna want to take some questions from you guys before we go today. I don't see any. Well, Drew says there's no war. Android is trash. So I'm gonna go with Drew on that one. Drew says, "Where do I give Geoff my address to send the 4099?" We'll have to. Actually, Drew, one of my 4099s is in Miami right now, so you're more than welcome to borrow and use that. So anyway, Geoff, thank you so much for. I know my camera is still a little bit off. The sync is a little bit off, but not to worry. We're gonna thank everybody for watching, and I'm not a video guy. I'm still an audio guy. So thank you. I know. Thank you guys for joining another episode of Learn from the Pros. Join me tomorrow. I'm doing an introduction into Digico tomorrow, so that's going to be exciting. So make sure you join. And yeah, thanks again, Geoff. Check out my website, jasonreynoldsproaudio.com, so we can stay in touch. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, thanks, Geoff. Appreciate it, man.